We're going to hear all about CPO and how awesome CPO is and why this might be the best time in the past, I don't know, 8, 10, 12, 15 years that I can remember for CPOs.
Ever?
Ever. Why don't we start by introducing ourselves?
Correct. My name's Ivan Drew. I'm the Senior Manager of Industry Analysis over here at Edmunds. Been doing this for a while. Even worked at Honda for a short stint, which is great as well. Yeah, I guess I'm good on that.
You're good?
Yeah, you're Mr. Matt.
My name's Matt. I've been here at Edmunds for a little over 6 years. Prior to being at Edmunds, I spent what seems like 1,000 years, but it was only 12 years in car dealerships in Southern California, doing a variety of jobs. I was on the floor, in internet, on the desk, and in finance. Altogether about 18 years in the car business, but we don't matter.
Yeah.
He matters. Would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Rodriguez. I'm the National Manager for Auto Remarketing for American Honda.
How long have you been with Honda?
28 years.
Whoa. Are you even 28 years old?
Oh, I'm feeling really old now. I should have said 20 years.
20 years.
Folks, that's close to 50 years of collective experience.
We got a whole bunch of
today.
experience up here. So what we wanted to do to start off is obviously today's topic for the webinar is certified pre-owned cars. We're calling this a certified pre-owned summer. We're going to explain why later. But before we do, a brief recap of what we covered on our last webinar, which was actually part 1. This is part 2. Last time, if you remember, we went and we spoke about the situation of used cars, right? Discussing how the average transaction price of your average used car in the country is now a little over 20 grand. And trying to highlight the importance of that, not just for us as sellers, but for what your customers are saying. Because, 6, 7 years ago when they bought their previous car, 20 grand was like a new Camry, right? Or a new Accord. So that same kind of money is now putting them sometimes into the pre-owned market. And we wanted to make sure everybody understood and respect that. We also discussed, because of the changing landscape, how trade-ins are now worth a little bit less than they have been in the past. Meaning that your customer who is on a schedule of trading in cars every 6 years, because that's the average.
Especially if they're loyalists, right?
Especially if you're loyalist, right?
Over and over again.
So if you traded in a car from a manufacturer and you were used to getting X percentage of your sale price back, that ain't the case anymore.
Yeah,
right?
knock off another 5, maybe even 10%, depending on the vehicle, brand, age, etc.
We also, in our last, and we're giving you all this as a primer for what we're talking about today, we'd also discussed in our last webinar how the gap between new car pricing and used car pricing is growing.
Yes.
New car prices are becoming very high, and luckily, used car prices seem to be a little bit depressed. So that gap is getting wider between choosing a new car and a pre-owned car. And all of that together makes this a pretty good time for certified pre-owned cars to really just take the forefront. More than anything that I can recall in my time in the business. So probably a good time for all, right?
Absolutely.
Now we're talking about CPO, and just wanted to give you a brief update of what we did last time, which led us into this conversation. So our first section is, how do we get it? Why are we talking about CPO?
And why is the market the way it is right now, right? And I think that one of the things that we really do have to highlight, because CPO it's a program, it's a tool, is the idea that why do we even have it? And my slide that I like here, it's a little confusing at first, but it really is, it is confusing. You wonder, what is the most reliable car? What's the most durable car? You can phrase it in any which way, shape, and form and come up with different answers. But in the end of the day, the customer wants one thing. They want to make sure their car is going to run, it's going to function as needed, and they're not driving a liability.
Right.
And in the end, you can get different answers, but certification takes away all the worry, it takes away all the, like, oh, is this covered, is that covered, is my car going to be running 10 years from now? It's like, that's one of the things where you can say a certified vehicle, it's kind of like a nice blanket statement, instead of like researching to death what is the most reliable car.
Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think it's peace of mind. It's almost like that security blanket, for the buyer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that pretty much sums up what people are hoping for with certified, right? So give us some numbers. That's your thing, dude.
Yeah, I like the numbers, you know that. And since I like the Google, since everybody uses the Google, you can actually use the tool they have that allows you to see trends. And literally call it Google Trends. You look up certified pre-owned, and you can see how often that comes up. It's indexed towards, is it popular now? Was it popular back then? You can see that it charts almost at a 1-to-1 correlation with the actual sales of certified pre-owned vehicles. And you can postulate that it's either that consumers are researching them buying, or maybe they went to the lot and they heard about this and therefore they bought later. But at the same time, you don't see this with other categories of sales. Standard use sales do not follow this pattern. New doesn't either. And I mean, this one, it's heavily influencing one another. Chicken or the egg, take your pick. It could be one or the other.
So maybe like a little bit of ambiguity as to what, like, well, I guess we could talk about that a little bit later. But if you see research kind of mirroring purchases,
Right.
people are spending a lot of time researching this particular
Because
segment,
it's an
right?
unknown
It's
factor.
an un-
People know what a new car is. They know what a used car is, but they don't know what a certified pre-owned car is. And that's where some of the transparency and information needs to come to light in order to help sell these products.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think really supports what, what you're just saying is, that millennial buyer is just the largest buying segment out there, and they're digital warriors. They're comfortable with the internet. They want to know the facts. They're a facts-based buyer. So they're leveraging, all that data, that's at their fingertips, through a mouse or, a keyboard, to help them in their buying process.
Right. We're seeing that it comes to fruition, right? They're not just researching and not buying. They research and then purchase. Otherwise, these two lines wouldn't go in order.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I mean, CPO growth since I think 2009 has grown like 150%.
Yeah.
So it's really, lends itself to that, to that millennial buyer.
Wow, that was that big. How are we selling a lot of CPOs? Yes, 150% more.
150% more, and at the same time, like the composition of franchise used dealers, not independents or like a CarMax kind of thing. It's in the 20-ish%, 25%, depending on how you want to look at it. But if we look at what's going to happen over time, right? Because there's more pieces of inventory that will qualify for certification going forward versus in years prior. You look at that inventory mix, right, on this next slide.
New and near inventory on the rise.
The idea that, it's not just off lease, but these trade-ins, because new car sales are very good right now, 16, 17-ish million units, and a little bit under half of those involve a trade. Some are too old. You might be trading a 15-year-old car, and that's never going to make it to CPO status. But people sometimes have life events, and things change. Now they have more kids than they expected. They need a minivan instead of that sedan that they have. They'll trade in a 2-year-old car. That 2-year-old car might be perfect for certification. So that pool of inventory is growing at the same time.
So people trading in cars early, right? Lease returns, those two things playing into helping stock this inventory of certifiable cars, right?